Hi, I'm Lisa Entwistle, founder of Wealthy Living and host of Wealthy Living radio show. Through conversations with my guests, my intention is to help you, the listener, to live a meaningful and connected life, to have the knowledge, confidence and clarity to make choices that support your well-being both personally and professionally. So humans are inherently social animals, and there is growing evidence that positive social relationships is a key ingredient for our well-being. In contrast, feeling isolated and lonely is a stress factor that poses a health risk. Yet, the research is indicating that we are living amidst a loneliness epidemic, that we're often avoiding face-to-face conversations and connection by using our phones to hide behind and to escape feeling awkward or alone. So my guest today is Natalie Swedosh, she devotes her time and energy to developing her social enterprise called Strike Up a Chat, with a vision to create an epidemic of friendly people chatting with each other face-to-face instead of phone-to-phone. Natalie is a wellness trainer, self-empowerment educator, and mental health therapist. In this episode, I will chat with Natalie about Strike Up a Chat, why she started it, some of her findings, some common barriers to talking to new people, the benefits of talking to strangers, and some of her best tips for effective communication. So welcome, Natalie.
Hi there, Lisa.
So maybe you could start by just telling the listeners about Strike Up a Chat. Like, what is it?
Strike Up a Chat is we've got a special framework for getting out into the public and bringing communication back into the public domain where it always used to live, but has sadly dwindled over the years, particularly lately with the current digital media. Everyone has a mobile phone. Yeah.
Yep. So why did you, apart from the fact, like I said in the beginning, that we're sort of amidst a loneliness epidemic and that we aren't, you don't have to do any research to know that when you go outside, you continuously see people on their phones. When you walk past people, even walking across a crossing, people are on their phones or they're waiting for a coffee or waiting for the bus. Everybody does seem to be on their phones a lot less eye contact, a lot less, real connection and interaction especially between strangers and often between friends.
Yeah.
So obviously, these are the obvious reasons why you might want to have started up Strike Up a Chat. But is there anything personal that's happened in your experience or that initiated you to be starting up this enterprise?
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing a little bit of training with WIRE, which is a women's information and referral centre, and I just had to drop out. I didn't have the time, unfortunately, to continue. And I just started to notice, I think it really highlighted for me how disconnected we were in the community and how many problems that there were within our community, but people weren't talking about it. And the more that I started seeing that, the more that I started to become alarmed, thinking, well, how are we ever going to solve the problems that are dear to our own heart and create the new earth that we're all wanting without the means of communication? Nothing ever has started without a chat. And the more and more that I looked, I was going out, and every time I would go out, I would see couples sitting at the table, not even connecting with each other. They'd be hanging out with their friends on the phone. And I started talking to people. I started asking restaurateurs and people from cafes, is this normal? Do people just not talk? And they tell me, yes, this is very normal. I started looking when I'd go out for lunch on my own at the people. Most people wouldn't even chat, wouldn't even stay off their phone long enough to taste their food. So I just started becoming concerned, not only for us, but for the younger generations coming through and wondering, well, how are we ever going to actually be connected when there's so much disconnection, loneliness, mental health issues that have been directly linked to that lack of connection and loneliness?
Yeah. So how did you go about starting it up?
I actually focused mostly on guys when I first started. The reason why I mostly focused on guys was because I was noticing a real rift between males and females with connection and chatting at all, in fact. And that was quite interesting. I was just out there. I had a chat card, which I developed with 4 simple statements on it. Hi, my name is Natalie, because that's my name, or Nat. You look interesting. I'd like to chat. Would you like to chat? If not, no worries. I wish you well. And so that was my way of approaching people. I thought, well, how can I approach people? No one wants to connect. But I thought, well, one thing we've all got in common is we're quite a visual culture and everyone can relate to a card. So I was basically offering a card to people just out in the community, and I would approach them and say, hi, I've got a social initiative called Strike Up a Chat, and we're just trying to bring friendliness via face-to-face chat back into the community. Can I have a chat? And it was quite incredible, a 100% positive strike rate with guys wanting to chat.
Wow. And
everyone was so encouraging and amazing. And you know what? It made me like men even more, with noticing how generous they were, men of all ages from 18 to 80, and all of them wanting to support Strike Up a Chat, every one of them thinking it was a great idea. And it helped me to really understand even more issues that were going on underneath the silence with why males and females are no longer talking. And so that's how it basically started. And then I started merging and branching out to, to everyone, to women, to young women, older women, just everyone, different social scenes, all kinds.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. So when you say that you had this 100, it surprised me that 100% of the men that you went to talk to were happy to talk to you, in varying ages, varying locations?
Varying locations, yeah.
Yeah. Varying cultures?
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. So when you say that it made you learn more about what was underneath this disconnect often between the genders, what did you learn?
I learnt that there's a whole big group of guys who will avoid contact with women, and that there's most teenage women, if you ask them, would you feel welcoming to a guy who you didn't know who approached you to strike up a chat? Most of them will say, if it's an older guy, yuck, they're creepy. And there's a whole group of men that are kind of accused indirectly of being rapists or lunatics or pedophiles, and they haven't actually done anything. So that there's a big part of the disconnect is that there's so much suspicion and distrust, but the problem is no one's actually talking about it. They're just avoiding it. Yeah. So people are not building resilience to that possibility. They're not actually finding that they're developing discernment, picking up visual cues with body language. They're just completely avoiding it. Males seem to be avoiding female connection because a lot of them are saying that they've been completely shot down, that they tried to approach females just because they were interested to chat, and they were treated like they were a potential predator. And it's just unfortunate that that bad, awful element that is there is tarnishing it for really good guys, and also for the joy of females and others to actually receive the input that and valuable input that guys have and can share.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I can see how that can happen. I know that I've experienced or had conversations with guys who now feel hesitant when they're walking down the street. They make sure that they don't have eye contact at all when a woman walks past them. Even with some other guys, they don't. But they feel uncomfortable if they're walking too close a distance behind them, because they are feeling like, is this woman going to think I'm going to jump on her, even to what side of the footpath they're walking on, because they're thinking, oh, well, if I walk on the gutter side, does she think I'm going to, block her against a wall, or, and these are things that I am surprised when guys have told me, because it doesn't enter my head when I'm walking and thinking those things. But obviously there's been so much publicity and I suppose with campaigns and movements like the Me Too campaign, which had so many benefits to it, but the downfall is that a lot of guys, like you're saying, are feeling like they're possibly grouped into one big predator community.
Really?
So an interesting thing that you brought up when you were sharing that was how by not engaging, we're losing discernment.
Yeah. So
can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, in normal everyday conversation with people, you're taking in visual cues. A lot of the conversation and communication is actually seemingly invisible, and yet it's highly visible. You're taking it in with that feeling part of you, the feeling part of the mind, the subconscious. You're picking up whether that person is threatening. You're actually feeling into your body what it feels like. This is all happening without your conscious awareness. You've worked out if they're safe to talk to, and whether you even want to chat with that person. So there are certain aspects of that is not getting exercised, as well as other elements. People are tending to just stay in their groups of people who they already know. So the problem with that is they're not bringing any new influences, new ideas in, new people, and so they can easily stay stuck in their perspective, which can often be prejudiced or have certain, racisms or, gender bigotry, whatever that is.
Yeah, and often confirmation bias to whatever they believe in, as opposed to,
it's
new
not
perspectives.
challenged. Yeah, unchallenged.
And then do you think what comes to me when you say that is that snowballs to possibly inability to navigate conflict. So if we're not practicing, if we're always around the same perspectives and we don't talk to new people or widen our circles to people that have different viewpoints, then we don't know how to navigate different viewpoints, because we, again, haven't had that practice. And therefore, when it does come to conflict, we don't have the skills to navigate that conflict, because we're so used to just being around people that have the same belief systems as ourselves.
That is completely it. And unfortunately, the younger generations, they're taking things away. Like if there's some element that might be disturbing, they're actually removing it so that the younger ones aren't developing the skills needed to actually build the muscle, so to speak, to cope with different coping mechanisms. And, it's a really great move that they're taking mobile phones out of the playground next year. I think only in public schools so far. But there is a real chance for kids to start to connect again in a way that's natural, rather than just connecting on the phone, which isn't really like having a chat with your friend, is it? Where your friend can give you a hug, or it's not the same.
It's a very disconnected conversation, because it's one line, one line, one line, one line, and there's not actually a sort of a cohesive conversation happening that you can do when you're in person as well. I suppose the other thing that it would bring up for me is that, I think we can't get away, going a bit backwards, I think that we can't get away that there is a digital age now, and people are going to communicate through emails, through phones, through devices, and I don't think it's necessarily about stopping that from happening. No. It's about encouraging a diverse way of communication, which includes the face-to-face conversations.
It's more about identifying problematic internet use. So the problematic internet use is when it's exclusive.
Yep.
So it's used exclusively as a form of communication and kind of connection, and rather than as well as.
Yeah, and then I think that what could happen is when you've got the ability to, not that a lot of them do, they send it off quickly, obviously without thinking about it sometimes, but there is that ability to stop, pause, edit before doing that. And obviously with effective communication, it's great to be able to have that discernment to stop and pause and think before speaking. However, there's so much more spontaneity within a conversation that can allow for a greater depth or greater insights and greater curiosity within a conversation, that when you've got it written down back to back, one sentence, you lose that spontaneity.
Completely. It's like a work of art. Some of the greatest works of art had a little mistake in it that turned into this amazing piece of artwork that if you took out that little element of uncertainty, the whole picture would cave in. The same as great conversations often can start by something that can come in kind of out of the ballpark. And then it can expand into something incredible, and everyone walks away feeling so enriched and inspired.
Absolutely. I know personally, myself, I get a lot of clarity within a conversation. So I get all these downloads and ideas and inspiration from having the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that you can't edit it, the conversation can go anywhere. It can go towards the back, the front, zigzag, all over the place. And that's what makes it so fascinating. And there is something about a great conversation that really does enrich and reward so many aspects of your life, and just the way you feel about yourself and feeling connected to something larger than yourself, which is the field of humanity.
Absolutely. And I suppose the other thing that comes up when I think about what face-to-face conversations enable for a person is boundaries. So I think boundaries is a huge problem in people today. They're especially kids. Yeah. They've lost the ability to, and we have with them, or just the interacting with boundaries. And if we don't have the practice of being in groups of people where we're speaking, or even one-to-one where we're speaking, we don't get the opportunity to practice a boundary that says, no, I'm not comfortable answering that. Yeah. Or, obviously you can do that online to an extent, but it's different. I'm not comfortable with the way that, you've encroached on my space, or all different things that happen, obviously, in being able to practice those boundaries to grow as a person when you have face-to-face connection.
And they're things that you kind of take for granted when you've come from a communicating family or from a social setting that has encouraged that, like if you're over a certain age often as well. Whereas we're finding with younger people that they're not experiencing that, and sometimes they're not sitting at the dinner table either. So they're not getting the conversation that some of the earlier generations would have from their upbringing, where you'd be sitting at the table and the family would be chatting. It would be the time. Absolutely. There wouldn't be, maybe on special occasions you'd sit in front of the TV and eating, but not most of the time.
Absolutely. So the other thing that I'm interested to hear your thoughts on is the fact that a lot of people aren't having a lot of as much face-to-face connection and communication, is that affecting empathy levels?
Yeah, I think so, definitely. Because you're in your own little pocket universe, aren't you? If you're not connecting and feeling into and experiencing different ways, and you're not practicing empathy. You know, you're not kind of really in another person's world if you're just within your own peer group all of the time. You're not experiencing it or tasting the pleasure of another person's company.
Yeah. So we can't really empathise a lot, with diversity or with different people without sort of igniting all of our senses.
Yeah, you have to experience it really. I did some strike up a chat last week at the Moroccan Soup Bar, actually, at one of their events, and they have an event called Speed Date a Muslim, which it's got a funny name, I know, and you don't walk out with a date. It's a great way to actually hear the voice of Muslim women, many of them feminists, and you can ask them anything, and they encourage you to strike up chats there at that event. And so just by exposing yourself to different people from different cultures is so rewarding. I didn't know heaps about the female Muslims at all until I had actually gone to that event and struck up chats with women, and incredible. It was so enriching just chatting to these amazing feminist Muslim women and hearing their perspective. In the West, we often look with pity at Muslim women, thinking they're all downtrodden, but I can tell you now they're empowered, these women who I met. So bang, there was one myth completely squished, and now I know the truth.
Yeah, what an amazing event. That sounds incredible. Yeah. And I'm sure, if you came across that event, there's probably loads of different opportunities, but you've got to be willing to go out and connect, in person to have these opportunities.
You have to challenge yourself, Sometimes, I wouldn't classify myself as an extrovert. I would say that I'm an omnivert. So for me, because I've got Strike Up a Chat as the social initiative, not every day do I feel courageous to go out and have a chat, and I'll have to force myself to do it because I know that the rewards are actually so incredible with just connecting in those little snippets where you actually create a moment of intimacy, which is the intimacy is actual connection, where you haven't been trying to get anything, you don't actually want anything, and the person gets that as well. It really is just chat and connection for connection's sake, and those moments are precious.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's great. It's an amazing initiative that you're doing. So making new connections and learning interesting things has benefits for both people, the person you're talking to, the person that's striking up the chat, yet so many people find it really difficult to strike up a conversation with strangers.
Yeah.
Why do you think this is?
Fear of rejection. If you move beyond that they might be a physical danger, which is a valid fear, and then look at the reality that can sit once it's okay, obviously I'm safe with that person, then it's always going to come down to being rejected in some way. And that that sits so deep within our human psyche, the fear of abandonment and perhaps the experience of abandonment, which a lot of people have from, in different areas of their life, that really rises to the surface. And that fear of being rejected in some way is what stops people in their tracks.
And that's valid,
Absolutely.
that is valid. And like you said, the fear of rejection or abandonment sits really deep in wounds for many people. And, so obviously a situation like speaking to a stranger may trigger that.
And culturally as well, because we find that, especially in our Aussie culture, but I could go over to the US, which I have travelled there extensively, and people would strike up a chat all over the place, men, women, anywhere, in a bookshop, walking down the street, in the supermarket, going out. I would not have people strike up a chat. Whereas they're a Western culture, they have the same rejection fears, but for some reason they don't let it stop them from initiating contact.
Why do you think that is?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm wondering whether that has something to do with the Anglo influence of Australia, to be honest, because I know how very unfriendly I've found parts of England, particularly London, with striking up a chat, and hostility also from some people in that city.
So say people listening are in cultures like England or Australia where it is quite difficult to be able to have the courage to talk to strangers, whether it be fear of rejection or abandonment or other things. What sort of suggestions can you give us to help those people have the courage to do that?
Well, it's always good just to start off with a smile and a, good morning or a hello. I do a thing which I call collect a smile, where I'll just go for my walk and I'll collect smiles. And I did a little reconnaissance mission, first of all, with just smiles on their own. And I noticed that a lot of people would pretend that they didn't see the smile. So it's like the smile on my face would just kind of fall onto the pavement, unloved. And then I noticed one guy who I smiled at said, "Morning." And I just thought, wow, morning, that makes all the difference. I really liked the way he said it and I really felt it. So then I practiced doing that on my morning walk, morning, and 100% positive success rate with smiles, because no one could pretend it wasn't for them, and they couldn't, they would all respond. And I really liked that as the first point of engagement. And so a smile is the first point of engagement if you're going to extend that to a strike up a chat, to strike up at that chat, that first initial contact with people.
Yeah.
And you would have an open body language as well, so that you look unthreatening. You would make, if you are tall, you might have bent postures. Your gestures would be soft and, "Hi, how's it going?" So you don't want to look threatening. You want to look open and appealing so that someone will find you accessible to chat with. And then with Strike Up a Chat, I'll always give a disclaimer. I'll say that I'm from Strike Up a Chat, or, bring attention into something that's of common ground interest. If it's a sunny day, it might be that, or if you're at an event, it might be to do with that. Whatever. So you bring that would be your icebreaker, how you would come in and start chatting with someone. And with Strike Up a Chat, it's a little bit different. We use a disclaimer. It's okay, hey, I'm just wanting a chat. I don't want anything. We're just seeing if we can bring chat back into the community. So you could definitely use that basis for the conversation. Hey, today I'm collecting smiles, or I just thought I'd strike up a chat with a complete stranger today, and instead of being on my mobile phone.
Yeah. Do you think that apart from the loneliness epidemic, we're also in a busyness epidemic? Right? So where people are busier than they've probably, or not everybody, but a lot of people are busier than they've ever been. They've got the possible family commitments, work commitments, social commitments, like all different things, and they're really busy. So for some people, maybe the idea on their commute or walking to the coffee shop or waiting for their coffee or waiting for the bus, it's a time that they literally just don't want to talk to anybody. And it's not even about the fact that they don't like connection. They just feel that they're so busy in their lives that that's the time to not speak. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's completely valid for many people. And the more practice that you get in actually chatting and initiating chats or conversations with people, the more you can kind of read that in a person. You just get a feeling about that or about them, and the chat won't go anywhere. And that's okay. It's always okay to not have that chat as well, you know, and that can change at different times for people as well. Some people, you know, they don't want to chat at all on that commute to work. You know, they're thinking about work and what they have to do. And so you kind of, you would respect that.
Yeah.
If the person doesn't want to chat, you don't like try to force anyone to chat. You know, you don't want to become a chatting pest.
Yeah.
You know? Like I might be a chat activist, but I'm certainly going to respect people's boundaries with that, with when and how and if they even want to chat, for sure.
And I think, I mean, a lot of that, when I say that, I think that one of the problems is not just not chatting to people, it's actually that we're not having the space full stop. So when I say people are wanting that time to themselves, often they actually are not having time to themselves because, as you said, they're looking at their phone, so they're escaping into a world of communication, just not necessarily a world of communication with those around them. So we probably need the balance of actual solitude, real solitude, to then be able to have the ability to connect well with somebody else.
There's that, and there's other little gifts too with actually being rejected for a chat, Lisa, because you're developing resilience too and realising, well, it's not actually all about me. That person has a reason that they don't want to chat, and that's okay. So part of it is developing your own resilience to not getting that chat in.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and it's interesting, like you said, about, you know, morning, you do find that a lot even in the Anglo cultures, but out of the city.
Yeah.
So I wonder why that happens as well. Like, is it just a different a slower mindset?
Less people. So in more rural areas, locals will chat with locals. They see that person maybe once every few weeks, once a month. They know that they live there. They kind of know a little bit about them. Whereas often they're not friendly to strangers in many rural towns and people who are just passing through. That's what I've found. Oh. And from chatting with people depends on where it is, you know, some places are generally more friendly, and that's what I've noticed even living in the city and chatting in the city. I've noticed some places are much more friendly, suburbs, from suburb to suburb. And I've had some extremely friendly chats in the city of Melbourne, right in the city. So I guess there are lots of different variables, but traditionally cities are a tougher gig to strike up a chat in.
Yeah. So when it comes to, we discussed a little bit before about some of the benefits with conversation and developing empathy, seeing different points of view, having, you know, that more, you know, intimate connection, all those different things that are really positive about having face-to-face conversation. But do you think, and I do, but I'm wondering, like, just the benefit, just the well-being benefit of an exchange when you pass someone that doesn't have to require a conversation, like the morning or the smile, what benefits for our well-being for both parties involved do you see?
There's plenty. There's been recent research that's shown that it's of great benefit. Just having that moment's connection makes you feel like you're not alone, that it just, we must release some great chemicals, and they have a great chemical release. You can feel the difference when you really genuinely connect with someone and they connect with you, as adverse to just a polite, friendly smile. So there is great benefit to that. It makes you feel seen and acknowledged in some way and accepted.
Yeah. So you feel included within sort of the community or the place that you're living, even if there isn't a lot of exchange, but there's just an acknowledgement.
Absolutely. So that's a form of communication.
Yeah.
you know.
Because I know that when I've done a fair bit of travel, and I feel probably somewhat more at home in countries that are, it's almost the opposite of here, where it's actually almost impolite or rude not to acknowledge someone or a stranger as you go past. That would be strange.
Yeah.
And so, even recently, last year I was in Brazil, and that's how it is there. And then I came home and tried to continue that, and people thought, what's wrong with her?
Yeah, for sure.
Why is she smiling at me? Why is she so happy today?
Yeah, completely. And in the end, you kind of get crushed back down to what's considered normal in the culture. And I've got someone who I struck up a chat with from New Zealand who said exactly the same thing. She's still got that good feeling from being in New Zealand, and people chat and they say hi to you, and then she has a little bit of it left over, comes back to Australia for a few weeks, and then ends up losing that good feeling and just going back down to what's considered normal.
Yeah, which is a shame, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this initiative that you've got, Strike Up a Chat, how long have you been doing this?
It's been around now for about 6 months, so it's relatively new. It's still very grassroots, but we've had quite a bit of press already and still gaining.
Yeah, and so if you could share your biggest 3 or however many you like takeaways from what you've done so far, and the conversations that you've striked up and what you've, I suppose, experienced, what would they be?
That to move beyond your fear and just to take that little risk and strike up a chat, because I tell you what, if you risk that little chat, it makes you feel so good when you actually feel that sense of connection with a person. There are other fantastic benefits. You've upped your own courage meter, and there's something you just kind of feel proud about yourself, that you've been the one that initiated that chat and you've connected with that person in that moment. It can be just for a couple of minutes. It can even be in the queue at the supermarket, anywhere. It just really adds something to your day, and it's a nice feeling to know that you've made a positive change to someone else's day as well.
Yeah, gorgeous. And if people did want to jump on board, is there room for, like you said, you've just started 6 months ago, but I know that you shared with me off air that you've got ambassadors that you give these cards to, the ones you talked about with the questions, and they're out doing the same sorts of things. Is there room for more ambassadors if people wanted to jump on board and become part of this social collective that you've initiated?
Absolutely. So we've got on our website, strikeupachat.com, people can join. It's a free initiative. They can join and become chat ambassadors. What they'll receive is helpful chatting guidelines, which are effective ways to feel more comfortable about initiating chats, how to extend the chat. You also receive the PDF for the chatting cards, which are a really helpful icebreaker, especially if you don't have a dog. You can say that the card is your dog, your international passport to chatting pleasure.
Because dog people get to talk to everybody.
Dog people get to talk to people because dogs are great icebreakers.
And people with prams.
And people with prams, absolutely. But you can keep your card in your pocket, in your wallet, in your purse, and you can pull it out anywhere. And chatting with our chat framework is really helpful because you know that you've got a whole team of people behind you, and if you choose to, you can post to our Facebook page or not post, and there's no pressure on it. There's a lot of support for people. So we've got a community within a community, which is lovely, with Strike Up a Chat. And for some chat ambassadors, if they want to, they can come out. We get into festivals for free, so we have a chat booth that we set up, and people can jump on board with that and bring the chat there, bring the chat into their own communities, come to our events, which anyone can come to, whether you're a chat ambassador or not. There's loads of great benefits to being a chat ambassador, and it's all free.
That's awesome. So you're also telling me that you've got an event coming up, your first sort of chatting event.
It's our first dinner and chat event.
Yeah, dinner and chat event. So can you tell the listeners a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got it on the 12th of August on a Monday night at the Moroccan Soup Bar to Go. It's our family chat night. So this family chat night around the dinner table, however, will be a banquet dinner with lots of people striking up chats, except at this family dinner, you'll never get into trouble for bringing up a topic, and no one's going to give you a clip across the ear or give you that glare that you've brought up the wrong thing or made a mistake. It's a inclusive dinner where we can just have a great time over great food, bringing that great dinner table atmosphere back.
Awesome. That sounds awesome. So that's in Melbourne, in
North Fitzroy.
North Fitzroy. I can put those details on the show notes as well.
Yeah, we need to book for that. We're almost at capacity so far, so people would have to contact us to book in.
But you might do more of those in the future as well.
Oh, yeah, we're doing regular ones, yeah.
It's awesome. Well, thank you, Natalie. It's been a pleasure chatting with you about chatting.
It's been lovely, Lisa.
And it's really awesome, the initiative that you're doing, and even just even as a social experiment, I find the whole thing quite intriguing.
It's exciting. I feel like we're at the forefront, Lisa.
Yeah, it's awesome. So to find out more about your services, they can go to strikeupachat.com. Is that it? Or .com.au or just .com?
Just .com.
Just .com. And there's also Strike Up a Chat Facebook page.
Absolutely.
And Instagram.
Yeah, and Instagram.
Fantastic. So, I really look forward to following what happens with Strike Up a Chat and how it grows, because it sounds like just a fabulous initiative. So thank you everyone for listening today to my Wealthy Living podcast. I'm Lisa Entwistle. I'm an integrated life, clarity and wellbeing coach, a workplace wellbeing consultant, a conversation facilitator, an event creator and host. To find out a little bit more about my services, you can visit my website at www.wealthyliving.com.au or connect with me on any of my social media channels. If you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love you to subscribe, rate and give a review on iTunes and share it with your friends or your networks so that it can have more reach. So thanks again, Natalie.
Thanks, Lisa. It was great being here.
Yeah, and until next time, remember that connection is medicine.